Leaders of the G7 countries say they will reduce their dependency on the Strait of Hormuz. In a statement released, they say they want to diversify energy supply routes to reduce global reliance on the strait. Leaders also said they will commit to increase energy stocks. Roughly 20% of the global oil consumption and liquefied natural gas passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Maximilian Hess is a fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute, and he joins us now from London. Max, thanks for being here. So the G7 says that it wants to diversify its energy supplies, but I wonder, once the strait reopens and everything goes back to some version of normal, won't it be the markets rather than politicians deciding where oil ought to come from?
Well, Scott, thank you so much for having me. And yes, I think you're right. It will be markets that determine that, particularly in the short term. So long as there is a regulated reopening of it, the demining is completed in 30 days as envisaged in the leaked Memorandum of Understanding. I expect large amounts of oil and natural gas will flow through the Strait of Hormuz again in due order. Now, that being said, this conflict has led to a significant reordering of both the political environment in that region, in the relationship to Washington, and of course, with regards to wider global energy supplies. I think the G7 statement here really is a appeal to Trump. He has sought to use this to at least salvage some gain after what is, clearly a rather humiliating retreat from the U.S.'s influence and even a near abandonment of the Carter Doctrine to keep the Strait of Hormuz open under all circumstances. He's seeking to keep a gain by having the U.S. LNG exports continue to grow. Now, the Gulf countries will gain more leverage over their relationship in the U.S. because of that increased role that Iran has there. But it's clear that Trump is prioritizing the U.S.'s economic interests, will seek to have the politics push that over the economics in the short term to salvage some kind of gain here.
Max, what do you think the Gulf countries' relationship is going to be like with Iran over the next couple of years? Do you think things go back to normal despite the bombing campaign that these countries have endured?
I think J.D. Vance, in one of his interviews yesterday, had a very interesting statement in which he said, the rewards will come, the money will be coming in investment from Gulf countries, he claimed, into Iran, so long as Iran changes its approach to the world, and that the U.S. would then, in turn, allow changes to how it governs Iran's interactions with the world. The reality, though, is I think the U.S. has lost a lot of influence on that matter. We'll see different approaches from different Gulf countries with regards to Tehran. Obviously, we saw Tehran take different approaches to them during the conflict in terms of the intensity of drone strikes that were there. But it's not likely that there will be the same level of unity that we have seen within the Gulf countries with regards to that issue. Tehran will seek to exploit those fissures, and whether it be the U.S. or China, which is probably one of the key winners from this conflict, both in terms of demonstrating its role in regulating global oil markets and proving that it's a more stable partner to regional countries, react and respond further. So the peace hopefully begins now. The geostrategic chessboard is very much in the early stages.
Max, the president was asked about this supposed $300 billion fund for Iran that's been in some of these leaked memorandums of understandings that some U.S. media outlets have gotten. And he said that this is false, but then he kind of tied himself in knots, saying, look, if people want to invest in Iran, this is not my business. I wonder how big of a deal or how big of a problem perhaps the framing of this is going to be for the U.S. president.
I'll be the first person to say that I think it's extremely unlikely that there will be $300 billion US worth of foreign direct investment into Iran in a short time frame, medium time frame, or even a long time frame, even if everything goes as well with this deal as soon as possible. But those points that you make around the framing, those are really crucial. And Trump seems to be saying one thing, appealing to his domestic audience, and another in negotiations with the Iranians. The one that I would also point you and your audience towards is that according to the leaked version of this MOU, the U.S. has also pledged to rein in Israel and to halt the conflict in southern Lebanon that Tel Aviv has been so intent on pursuing under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, airstrikes were continuing by the IDF on alleged Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon as recently as this morning. So how the U.S. manages to make all of its commitments, even with its ostensible closest ally in getting this MOU forward, is there. One last point to make on that, I would say, is, look, the MOU is a clear sign that both Iran and the U.S. want to de-escalate the fighting. I think Tehran is seeing perhaps a sign that it can maybe win that peace regionally, whereas the U.S. will remain distracted. Whether it be that $300 billion or the pledge to get an eventual final agreement 60 days after this, I would be much more skeptical.
Max, I want to quickly ask you, before we let you run, about Ukraine. The G7 countries say that they are re-upping their support militarily for Ukraine, and they are also interested in reinstituting or furthering sanctions on Russia. I wonder if you think that either of these things are likely to move the needle when it comes to the conflict in Ukraine.
Tragically, I don't think it's likely that they'll move the needle, even though that has been moving against Vladimir Putin. He has shown no signs of being willing to give up this war. Now, they will move the needle on international oil markets, and whether Brent oil settles below $80 or above it, I think will be really crucial in terms of how much the Europeans go in terms of their further sanctions. If the U.S. fully recommits to its sanctions program against Russia, for your listeners, the last waiver on Russian seaborne oil that the U.S. issued as part of its strategy in the Iran war expired at midnight last night. Trump indicated he did not plan on renewing it. So it will be important for the oil market investor, but tragically, I don't think it will move the needle yet in terms of bringing a end to this conflict into a realistic, foreseeable timeline.
All right, Max Hess from the Foreign Policy Research Institute. We appreciate the analysis as always. Thank you.